My daughter pushed the will across the coffee table and said, "Sign this and get out of here tonight, Dad. This house is ours now." I didn't scream. I touched the wedding photo, picked up my wife's old chipped china cup, dragged two suitcases, and walked quickly out of the house. They thought a piece of paper could erase my memory, but they didn't know that I had a better memory than they thought, and tomorrow the pieces of truth would start talking. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Drizzle needled the porch. The yellow porch light threw a long stripe across the wood floor. I sat back in the armchair, hands on my knees, working to keep my breathing even. Sabrina set a stack of papers on the coffee table. The edges stroked square like she'd just slid them out of a plastic sleeve. She smiled the way adults smile when they're helping a stubborn child. "Mom left everything to me. You should get some rest," she said. Soft voice, very polite. I pulled the stack toward me. The black ink had bled a little by the postmark. The photocopied signature looked rough, like the surface of licorice root. I tipped my head. The date at the bottom leapt off the page. A day I know for certain we were still in the hospital, when my wife, on a rolling bed with the wheel that squeaked, said, "Don't worry, we'll update after my labs." I remember it because I held her hand hard, and here the number was wrong. A quiet line, cold and wrong. "Where did you print this?" I asked. Sabrina shrugged. "At home, Dad. The attorney's already reviewed it. Don't make this hard." She slid out another sheet and pushed it to me. "Agreement to vacate within 48 hours. Let us bring in a crew so you don't wear yourself out." I set my pen on the paper, then lifted it back up. "I'm not signing anything tonight." I heard my own voice, calm, firm, like a deadbolt seeding into its strike plate. By the doorway, Cole tapped his phone, the plastic case knocking a steady little clack. "Come on, Dad," Cole said in that tone men use with other men. "Just sign and be done. I'll get you a great place. Assisted, pool, clubhouse. You just relax." "I'm still in my house," I said. I stood, stepped into the kitchen to get air. The sink smelled of dish soap. White suds clung to the bottom of a glass. I reached for the wall cabinet where my wife kept anything important. Mail in one slot, always. 2 tan envelopes had been there day before yesterday, the postmarks still damp. I saw them. Now the shelf was flat as a bare plate. "I cleaned that cabinet for you," Sabrina said, appearing behind me like a shadow with expensive perfume. "I'll hold those so nothing gets lost." I turned. Her fingers pressed lightly together. The pocket of her dress bulged. I held out my hand. "Give them back." Sabrina smiled and cocked her head. "Don't be paranoid. I'm taking care of you." Her smile never reached her eyes. The rain thickened. Out in the hall, Cole was still swiping at some app. "I went ahead and changed your camera and utilities passwords, just to be safe," he said without looking up. "Lots of break-ins lately." "This house hasn't been awarded to anyone by a court," I said. "No one changes anything." Cole smiled and gave me a little stage bow. On his screen I caught a flash. Password updated, before it vanished. Sabrina stood beside him, soothing. "It's only temporary, Dad. I'll be responsible." I didn't answer. I climbed a few steps. On the landing, the wedding photo hung there. 2 young people under an oak, her dress moving like a small cloud. I set my palm on the wood frame. A fine strip of dust lined my fingertip. "Your mother never shut me out of dinner," I said, not looking at anyone, much less a will. Sabrina came up 2 steps, lowering her voice to speak to the wall. "Mom trusted me. You were never good with money. She wanted me to keep it tidy." "The dates don't match my memory," I said, turning to meet her eyes. "And my memory's good enough to know that." A spark of irritation flickered through Sabrina's eyes and was gone. She smiled again. "Go to a motel tonight. Tomorrow the locksmiths come. Rest. Don't make this harder." I went back down, walked straight to the porcelain mug in the sink, the chipped one my wife used for evening tea, a chip the size of a grain of rice on the rim, just enough for your mouth to dodge, a tiny habit only the 2 of us knew. I picked up the mug, wiped it with a kitchen towel, set it squarely on the table. Then I pulled the old suitcase from under the stairs. The wheels squealed, reminding me that every step has a price. I reached for the chipped mug, tucked it into my carryall, then rolled the suitcase to the hall. Sabrina planted herself on the doormat, hand outstretched. Give me your keys. I'll keep them safe. What if you drop them? I clenched the ring once, then slid it into my coat pocket. These keys were put in my hand by your mother. I'll keep them. Cole stepped forward half a pace, voice tight. At least sign the voluntary vacate. It'll save us fights later. If it's voluntary, it doesn't need paper, I said, holding his eyes. Paper is for people who are afraid of tomorrow. Sabrina smiled, thin and cool. You're bad with money. I'm protecting family assets. Family assets, I said. Start with respect. Cole flicked his gaze to the suitcase. Pack light. A lot of that stuff is part of the estate. I'm taking a chipped mug, a few shirts, and my memory, I said slowly. Which of those is the estate? Sabrina dropped her voice. Don't make me do things that aren't pleasant. I'm not signing. I'm leaving tonight to keep the house quiet. Tomorrow I come back with paperwork. If you call a lawyer, don't blame me for what comes next, Sabrina hissed. Don't threaten me, I said, and opened the door. The latch closing behind me sounded like a string snapping. Damp air wiped my cheek. The steps were slick with rain. I hauled the suitcase down, listening to the drops drum the plastic shell. Across the street, Rosa, my neighbor, went by with her dog. She paused a beat, eyes met mine. I tipped a nod instead of speaking. She nodded back and moved on, a slow shadow under her umbrella. I didn't ask for help. I decided to let my pride stand up straight. Behind me, Sabrina held out a printout listing senior living communities, glossy photos of blue pools. I didn't take it. I drove through the rain. The radio hummed old songs. The streets were quiet as if someone had swept up the extra noise. Out in the suburbs, a vacancy sign blinked. I turned into a yellow-lit lot. Inside, the lobby's bleach smell laid a thin film on my skin. The clerk looked up and slid over the register. I took the ballpoint on its plastic chain. The first two strokes went faint as the ink died. She handed me another. I signed slow and full, on purpose, so when I looked back later, I'd know I was here tonight and nowhere else. The room was small. Damp curtains bellied with the AC. I set the suitcase by the bed, opened it, took out a clear binder. Inside, appliance warranties, a photo of my daughter at 6 with her stuffed dog, a wrinkled receipt from the bakery we used to buy bread from. I flipped the sleeves, plastic rasped. Once these were the rhythm of an ordinary family. Now they were clues to a different story. Someone had just tried to cut me out of my own. I sat on the edge of the bed, dialed Omar Ruiz, the attorney who'd done our house papers years ago. Ring, voicemail. I spoke slow, breathing into the phone like you do before diving. Hi, Omar. It's Thomas. I'm coming to see you in the morning. I'm convinced the real will doesn't match what they handed me. I need to see the sealed copy and the last update date. I paused half a beat. Call if you get this tonight. I set the phone down. A truck slid by outside. Its light swept a thin band across the wall and went dark. I poured water from the little plastic carafe, drank in sips. The water had that faint new plastic taste. I thought about the way Sabrina said, taking care of you. The way a maitre d' says complimentary while you're allowed to order only from the prefix. I thought about the moment Cole tilted his phone and the tiny banner flashed. And I thought again about the two envelopes that vanished from the cabinet as if they'd never been there. Thin threads linking those moments weren't a net yet, but they'd wrapped my wrist and were tugging. I took the chipped mug from my bag, not to drink. I'd brought a habit with me, a familiar place for a mouth to land and avoid. I set the mug beside the phone on the cheap wood desk. I opened the camera and took a picture. The bargain laminate desk, the chipped mug, the phone lit up. I named the file simply Night 1, so I'd understand it later too. The phone buzzed. Sabrina's text, "Don't make this a thing. I'll take you to a doctor tomorrow." a friendly-looking, smiley face at the end. I looked at it for 3 seconds, screenshot it, and set the phone face down. I didn't reply. Back in the chair, I wrote one short line on a blank page. Morning. Lawyer. I circled the word lawyer in pencil. Under it, I wrote 4 words. Let the documents speak. I didn't list anything else. Not the bank, not the police, not tech support. Those could come later if they needed to, and only after I had answers from someone who knew the law better than I did. I killed the overhead light and left the lamp on. I lay back. The thin mattress springs whispered. Just before my eyes shut, I thought of the house keys in my coat. I pulled them out, a little enamel ceramic fob with a chipped corner, the birthday gift my wife had given me. I held it, letting the hole and the broken balance each other in my palm. I whispered, to no one in particular and needing no one to hear, tomorrow let the paperwork speak. Then I slept. I woke earlier than usual. The motel hallway still smelled like bleach, as if someone had wiped every surface down with something sharp and chemical in the night. I splashed cold water on my face, put on a button-down with a chest pocket, and slid a pencil in. Small ritual, but it made me feel like I had a plan. On the table, the chipped porcelain mug I'd brought sat beside my car keys. I picked up both, dropped the keys in my pocket, and carried the mug in my hand like a paperweight for my nerves. Omar's office was in a red brick strip near the county building. Denise, his assistant, opened the door, asked one brief courtesy question, and led me into a small conference room with a window looking out at an oak. When Omar came in, I heard the chair skim the floor and, out of nowhere, felt steadier, the kind of steady you feel when you know someone's about to show you the map. I heard your voicemail last night, Omar said, setting a fat file on the table. Let's start here. He slid out a hardback folder with prongs, flipped to the last page, and set his finger on the dateline. I leaned in. The number there wasn't the number on last night's photocopy. It matched my wife's final follow-up, the day after she told me, on that rolling bed with the squeaky wheel. All set, I'm at peace. The exactness of it put a bitter taste in my throat. Last update is that date, Omar said. Per this will, the house goes to you. 70% of the marital estate goes to you. The rest is for Sabrina, but it's conditional. What conditions? I asked. Respectful treatment of you, and no interference with you after your wife's passing. Omar paused and looked me straight on. Did anyone interfere last night? I was told to sign myself out of the house in 2 days. They changed the camera and utility passwords, and 2 envelopes in the kitchen cabinet suddenly weren't there. Denise pulled up an old inbox, scrolled, and opened an email. Here, my original note after I read the will. I invited the family. Sabrina replied, Dad's out of town. I'll attend on his behalf. I leaned back, laced my fingers on the table. Why had my daughter chosen that route? Why did she think I'd never look? I didn't have an answer, but one thought snapped into place. I needed certified copies, stamped, and then I had to carry them elsewhere. If you want the banks to react, we'll need certified copies, Omar said. And if you want a broader freeze, you'll also want a sworn incident report with a case number from the police. Best order, downstairs to the county records for stamped copies, then the bank, then the police. If the county jams you up, ask for a scan in the meantime so the bank can at least see it. Okay, I said. My hands stopped shaking. There was an order to things. I didn't need to walk the edge of my feelings anymore. The road was on paper. Records were in the basement. Cool, damp concrete stairs. Inside, the air carried faint toner and washed-out ink. A commercial printer blinked red. A clerk was lifting the lid and tugging out a crumpled wad of jam sheets. Sorry, she said, lowering her mask so I could hear. Stamped copies won't run until this afternoon. The machine's been jamming all morning. Could I get a scan now? I asked. Just so the bank can look. She nodded, typed my name, entered the file number Omar had texted me. I'll email it right away, but for the stamp, come back later. She gave me a small appointment slip, afternoon pickup, with a pale red library-style stamp. Someone behind me muttered, "Jammed again." I stepped aside for an older man hugging a bundle bound with rubber bands. He nodded, hands shaking. Outside, noon sun clung thin as oil. I ate a quick sandwich from a corner cart and went straight to the bank branch. The blonde wood at the desk shone. A black desk phone sat there, its cord twisted like a spring. The fraud officer, a woman with a short haircut, took me into a small room. "I need a temporary freeze on the estate accounts," I said, laying down my binder and opening the email with the unstamped scan. "I'll bring the stamped copy back this afternoon." She scanned the screen, took notes. "We can flag and pause transactions tied directly to the estate pending documentation if you attach a sworn statement from police. For broader relief, linked sub-accounts family members are using, we'll need the certified will." "I understand." She lifted the handset. "Tech, please note the review on—" "Yes, he'll return with a stamped copy." Then she slid a form toward me. "This is your receipt for this morning. We've opened the review and are awaiting documents. Once you bring the stamped will and the police case number, we'll apply the temporary freeze the same day." I closed the binder. It felt like traffic crawling onto a bridge at rush hour. Slow, but in the right lane. I walked to the city police building, sandy brick with a low awning. At intake, a sign read, "Please read the oath aloud before signing." The clerk handed me a form and pointed to a short paragraph. I read every word out loud, voice a little husky, not shaky, describing being asked to vacate, the suspected misuse of a will, the password changes on camera and utilities, the two envelopes disappearing from the kitchen cabinet. He nodded, stamped the corner with a green seal. "You'll get your case number by text in about an hour. Don't confront them yourself. Let the paper go first." "I don't argue by mouth," I said. "I argue with timestamps." He smiled the way people do when a sentence lands right. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, "For the good of the family." Sabrina's attorney wrote a long piece about saving face, avoiding a scene, and concerns about your mental health. I stood on the steps in full sun, read it all, hit save, didn't reply. I screenshotted it and filed it in a folder with a plain name. Day 2. That afternoon, I went back to records. The big printer was humming, breathing out even stacks. The clerk handed me a certified copy of the will, a heavy blue stamp pressed hard in the corner, the archivist's signature beside it. The date writing shotgun. The paper felt heavier than ordinary stock, and not only because of weight. There's a gravity to certified. From there, I went straight to the bank. The fraud officer studied the stamped copy, checked the update date. "All right," she said, keyed in a string, and made one more internal call. "We'll place a temporary freeze to review estate accounts today. Here's the receipt. Time, minute, approving officer. Linked sub-accounts are under review. Give us 2 days." "Anything else you need from me?" I asked. "Keep your phone on. If we see anything odd, we'll call. You should also change passwords on services in your name. Tonight." "I will." Leaving the bank, I got the police text with my case number. I forwarded it to Omar and Denise. Denise pinged back fast with a little received check and, "Tonight, please photograph the papers and send them. I'll file to the e-docket." The sun slid through leaves, leaving a gold strip at the edge of the clouds. I returned to the motel as the streetlights came on. Same bleach, same AC chill. I set the certified copy, the bank receipt, and the afternoon pickup slip on the desk. I took a clear photo of all 4 corners, shifted my hand so the lamp didn't glare off the stamp. This one I titled even shorter, Seal. I pulled a small USB from my pocket, plugged it into my phone with a little adapter, and made a folder called Day 2. I dropped in the photo, the saved email, and a quick note I typed. Oath read, case number assigned, bank place temporary freeze. When I finished, I blew gently across the label on the USB. Silly, but it helps ink dry. I wrote exactly 2 words, Day 2. The phone buzzed. Sabrina again. "Don't make a scene. I'll take you to a doctor tomorrow." Same tone as last night, like a scheduler managing a show where I'm a day player. I looked, screenshotted, locked the screen. Tomorrow, if I need a doctor, I'll be the one who calls. No one storyboards my mind but me. After I texted Denise the images, I sat still for a long minute, listening to the AC push the damp curtain and make it whisper. I opened the binder and slid a fingertip over a photo of Sabrina at 6. Crooked ponytail, gap-toothed grin. I left it out for a minute, then tucked it back in. I'm not going to fight my memories. I'm going to shelve them in their proper place, like stamped files I can pull when I need to know what I'm reading. An email chimed. Denise, they just filed an emergency petition to have you declared incompetent. Get a capacity letter from a doctor first thing tomorrow. I leaned back. A beat later, I sat up straight, took my notebook, and wrote 3 crisp bullets. Doctor, early, court, file doctor's letter, plus objection, bank, bring extra certified copies if they ask. Then one last line, call Omar before moving. Outside, the neon from the restaurant across the way blinked like Morse. I touched the chipped mug, and suddenly that chip looked like a dash, a hard little mark between yesterday and today. I remembered Omar's morning line. Without a wet stamp, the bank sees a story. With one, it's a fact on paper. I smiled to myself. Turns out sometimes justice is a blue stamp, a straight line of type, and a man who knows not to sign anything in a rainy night. I darkened the screen. The day closed without drama. Tomorrow may be louder, but I've got something to speak for me. Documents. The clinic smelled like antiseptic from the doorway. The receptionist handed me a short form and told me to sit. Name, age, current meds. I set the paper on the clipboard and wrote slowly, as if a quick stroke might tear the quiet of the waiting room. A print of sunflowers hung on the wall, yellow like sunlight that had been framed and put away. My doctor opened the door and nodded. Come on in, Thomas. He let me sit, put on his glasses, flipped through a few pages of my old chart. Get any sleep? I dozed just enough to wake on time, I said, and I need something very specific from you. He didn't interrupt. He started with my full name, date of birth, home address. He asked what day of the week it was, who the president is, and to name 3 objects in my shirt pocket. I pulled out a pencil, a notebook, and my keys with a little chipped porcelain fob. I told him what I'd done yesterday, from leaving the motel to laying that blue court stamp on the motel desk. My voice, hearing it back, sounded like a car crossing an old bridge. Slow, creaky, but it got to the other side. He nodded, satisfied, and made notes. You know where you are? You know what you need? You remember details in order? You're not demented. He printed a capacity letter and signed it. The antiseptic smell rose up when he passed the page across. I'll give you 1 original and 1 stamped copy. Keep the original on you. Don't hand it to anyone. If the court wants to see it, show the copy first. At first, the receptionist said, You'll need an appointment for stamped copies. But the doctor turned and said, This one's urgent. She dug out the stamp and brought it down with a thud. Deep green ink bled into the paper fibers. I slid both sheets into a clear binder with a thin plastic cover and went straight to court. The county hallway smelled like fresh paper and air conditioning. At the counter, I filed the doctor's letter and my objection to last night's emergency guardianship petition. The clerk skimmed each page, smacked a red received on them, then handed me a small slip with the expanded case number. An interim hearing can be set very quickly, she said. Not a threat, more like a habit. Carry your original with you in case the judge wants to see it right then. My phone buzzed while I was clipping the binder shut. An email from Sabrina's attorney. They propose an independent psychological evaluation, all for the good of the family. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Omar. Omar called while I stood at a narrow window, looking out over the grass. They're running the clock, he said. For now, you block their temporary order. Keep the letter on you. When they demand another exam, we'll deal with scope and who the doctor is. Okay. I didn't want to say much, Talking now would only swell the feelings. I held the binder like a handrail and walked down the stone steps. At lunch, I stopped back by the bank. The same fraud officer was in the small room. I gave her the doctor's letter and a supplemental sworn statement Denise had drafted. Timestamps in bold, layered over the old statement like a patch that finally matches the fabric. She read with full attention, touched her pen to a couple of lines. This is when the camera password changed, correct? Yes, I took a screenshot. She nodded and typed. We'll extend the freeze to 2 linked sub-accounts Sabrina's been using. Other related accounts will need 24 to 48 hours for review. I looked at the fresh receive stamp on the supplement. It sounded in my head like a second deadbolt sliding home. As I stepped out of the bank, my phone lit up. Sabrina. My cards keep getting declined. Dad, you're hurting me. I took a screenshot, circled the time, dropped it into a folder named Day 3. I didn't answer. I reminded myself, only people afraid of tomorrow need to threaten today. The road around a small industrial strip led to a print shop Mina Kwon, the investigator Omar recommended, had pinned on the map. The iron gate was half open. The sign sun-faded. A bell on the counter was polished smooth. I set my hand on it but didn't press. A young woman came out of the back, t-shirt dotted with black ink. We don't retain walk-in customer records, she said as soon as I gave my name. Owner's out today. Do you still have the invoice from that day? I asked. Or a print date? We only deal with law enforcement, she said, like reading from a card. Mina stood just behind me, eyes sweeping the paper sample racks. Look here, she whispered. Down by the footer of one sample was a tiny code mark, matching an internal SKU on the price board inside. This stock makes a wet stamp look pretty convincing if you scan it in print, she said just loud enough for me. The words hung in the air between us. I turned back to the counter. Then give me an email so the police can send a preservation request. She shrugged, wrote an address on the cover of a catalog, and pushed it toward me with both hands holding the corners, like she thought I'd grab it. The handwriting was quick and jagged, but legible. Go, Mina said softly at the door. City PD. Don't give them time to wipe the files. The police lobby smelled like desk foam plastic and stale coffee. Detective Laura Evans looked me straight in the eye as I walked her through the shop, the stock code, the email. She listened without cutting in, then set the desk phone down flat, hit speaker and read, word for word. This is a demand to preserve data. Retain all design files, machine logs, and internal camera footage for date, time, and send written acknowledgement of receipt. I watched her hand on the edge of the desk, steady, patient. As for the internet provider, she said, we'll request preservation of the password change logs for your home camera, date, time, IP address. They'll answer in writing. She turned to me. Tomorrow come back and sign a supplemental sworn statement. I'll also refer you to a federal contact who can explain how to record lawfully if the other side tries to work something out. The word record made my throat heat like I'd swallowed coffee too fast. I nodded. I'll do it in order. Keep everything, Laura said. Files and cameras. It was getting dark when I reached the motel. Same antiseptic, same tired AC. I laid the doctor's letter, the court received slip, the bank receipt with time, minute, and approver on the desk. I photographed every corner, angling the lamp so the stamps didn't blow out. I plugged in a fresh USB, labeled it Day 3 with a small piece of tape in black ink, and blew on it like a kid making soap bubbles. The phone rang. Sabrina. I let her name glow on the screen a long beat, then answered. Dad, her voice smaller than usual. Let's just talk. Just us. Don't bring outsiders in. Family settles family. Tomorrow, I said. Tonight the documents need to be ready. You want to beat me? She shot back like seeing a guest off the porch. I want the truth on paper, I said. I heard her exhale. Get some sleep, Sabrina. I hung up and let the heat drain from my ears for a minute. I wrote 3 clean lines in my notebook. Today, clinic, court, bank, print shop, police, who received what was filed. I underlined preservation requested. I squared the stack, took the chipped porcelain mug from my bag, and set it beside the Day 3 USB. Paper dust freckled the desk. I swept a finger across it, those specks sticking to my skin like invisible evidence. Night came. The curtain breathed with the AC. I lay there listening to distant traffic, thinking about a day that touched 5 counters, each one needing only one right stamp. The doctor said, "You're not impaired. You just need the right paper at the right time." Laura said, "Keep everything." The bank officer said, "Big money doesn't get to wander." I smiled in the dark. Unlocking the doors someone helped me open too easily. One last buzz, Denise's email. File Day 3, tomorrow 9 a.m. with Laura, 10 a.m. I booked Omar. Rest, Thomas. I typed one word back, received. I turned off the light. Before I closed my eyes, I put my hand on the keyring with the chipped porcelain fob. The little chip pressed into my knuckle like a dash between 2 sentences. The first was the rainy night I left home. The second is tomorrow, when the papers will speak for me again. The next morning, I sat on a hard plastic chair in the small waiting area at City Police Headquarters, staring at a tabletop cross hatched with faint X's where people had tested pens 100 times. Laura Evans set a thick manila file in front of me, the ink smell still fresh. I reread my supplemental statement, checking each timestamp the way you check a pulse. When the camera password was changed, when the bank put the temporary freeze in place, when the print shop and the ISP were told to preserve data. "Good," Laura said, clean and short. "Let's go to the prosecutor." The county courthouse hallway was cool. The county prosecutor, a broad-shouldered man in an indigo tie, flipped through the file the way a mechanic checks a motor. "We've got," he ticked off on his fingers, "a sworn statement, the capacity letter, the email where the will reading was kept from you, the bank's confirmations, and preservation demands to the print shop and the ISP. That's enough to seek warrants." We waited outside the judge's chambers. The clerk poked her head out. "She's finishing another matter." I sat up straight, opened my binder, and wrote 2 small lines in the margin. 9:15, handed file to prosecutor. 9:47, awaiting signature. The AC hissed through the door gap, a string tugging patience out longer. At last we were called in. The judge's eyes were bright. She read slower than I expected, asked Laura and the prosecutor a few pointed questions, then picked up her pen. The scratch of it sounded like a deadbolt sliding. Arrest warrants for Sabrina and Cole. A narrowly tailored search warrant in writing. Seize only the phones and the file folders they bring to the meeting. I saw the words narrow scope and felt a steadiness settle in my gut. Exactly what I needed. Precise and enough. Laura handed me a copy. "Your job," she said, "is to bait them into talking. Everything else is ready." By noon, we were in a cafe a few blocks from Sabrina's place. Round, glossy wood table, coffee and buttered bread in the air. Omar on my left, Laura across from me, and a woman with her hair tied back, flats on her feet, Agent Dana Whitaker. Dana set a recorder on the table, smaller than a matchbox, along with 2 pre-numbered evidence bags. "Clip this to your shirt pocket," she said. "Say a few ordinary lines so I can check the audio." I clipped it, glanced at the chipped porcelain fob on my keys, and said something close to nonsense. "When it rains in the afternoon, my daughter's porch roof rattles." Dana played it back. My voice was clear, even the breath between words. "Good," she nodded. "If they lean in or sit an arm's length away, we'll still get it." I hesitated. "Recording my own kids." Dana looked at me without the padded sympathy people fake. "You're protecting yourself," she said evenly. "And here, one-party consent applies. You are that party. You're not doing anything wrong." I nodded. I appreciated an answer that didn't pat me on the head. Omar slid over a chain of custody form with blanks for time, from, to, and signatures. After the meet, he said, We move the file to a USB, seal it, and all three sign. You, me, and the detective. Not in Sabrina's house, here at the cafe or at the station. Laura's call. My phone buzzed. An email from Sabrina's attorney. Private settlement, no third parties, at their home or a restaurant. I looked at Omar. He shook his head. They want to control the space. If they insist on a settle tomorrow night, Omar said to me, do it at their house, not a restaurant. At a restaurant, they can peel off, duck to the bathroom, vanish. Laura had a map open at once, zoomed on Sabrina's block. If they go for it, we'll stage a task unit in an unmarked car about 100 meters out, she said. No uniforms. We'll monitor on our own radios. We won't tie into your device. No leaks. Your trigger is a text to me that says, stop. If you sense danger earlier, text AIR and we move in. The mouth cue stays. We should stop here, Dana reminded me, but don't rely on anyone catching hints. Send the text. Draft them now and pin them to the top. I typed 2 messages, stop and air, and starred the thread. I looked at Laura. When you get stop you, knock and announce, she said. We knock, identify, execute the arrest warrants. At the same time, we serve the narrow search warrant for the phones and the file folders in their hands. We won't be inside ahead of time. They control the cameras. We won't risk exposure. I opened a new draft and typed, nothing fancy, no backspace. Tomorrow night at the house, 7 p.m. Only me, Sabrina, and Cole. No recording, no lawyers. I paused. If you bring a lawyer, the talk ends and moves to court. I sent it. Omar nodded. Putting no lawyers is right. They can choose to stay silent or talk. Their choice. A few minutes later, Cole called. His voice hit like a nail. You're wrecking this family. Tomorrow night, I said, tone flat as the tabletop. Your house, 7. I'll remember every word you say today, he snarled. Don't bring anyone. He hung up. I stared at the dead screen the way you look into a well. I didn't toss a rock in. I took a screenshot of the confirmation before it could vanish. I pulled out a small card and, with a felt tip, wrote 3 prompt questions. When did you learn there was an updated will? Who drafted the power of attorney you pushed me to sign? Did you change the camera password and hold on to your mother's envelopes? I practiced them like conversation. No emphasis on any word, letting any silence on their end underline itself. Omar played Cole for a while, frowned, dodged, changed topics, and I practiced bringing it back with one short line. Answer me. I rehearsed my cue line in a natural tone, like wrapping a visit. We should stop here. Laura nodded. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I just needed my rhythm. Laura asked me to sketch the living room so they could plan. I roughed it on paper. Table, chairs, kitchen, front door. She studied it. You sit here, she said, tapping the chair with arms. When they come in, greet them normally. Ask. If they dodge, restate. When you say, we should stop here, we move. No other code words. Don't improvise. She closed her notebook and looked at me. Anything else you need to feel settled? If they try to switch locations at the last minute, I said, I want the right to cancel. You have it, she said. And if they put hands on you, text AIR. We come early. I nodded. A small stage set in my head. Sabrina's dining table, warm light, me laying the binder down and leaving 3 beats of quiet after each question. Everything else, the papers and the warrants, would go in ahead of me. Dusk fell. I killed most of the lights and left the porch lamp on. The evidence bag sat ready on the side table. The certified copy of the will was there. The binder and the bank receipts on the coffee table. The chipped porcelain mug beside the water carafe. I stepped onto the porch, drew one long breath, went back in, and set my phone face down. Sabrina's text came at 10 to 8. Tomorrow the house, 7. Don't make a big deal. I replied, just the 3 of us. No recording, no lawyers. 3 dots pulse, then Fine. I looked at "Don't make a big deal" and thought, truth doesn't have to be loud, it has to be clear. I locked the screen and turned out the light. The wood floor held one last beat of glow and then swallowed it into the dark. Tomorrow I'll sit in the right chair, say the right line, and let them speak the rest. I arrived 5 minutes early. The block was quiet, just the warm exhaust of a neighbor's HVAC breathing into the dusk. A brand new doormat. Sabrina had changed it. I looked at the doorbell camera, drew a breath, and pressed. In my shirt pocket, the recorder sat still, clipped tight to the fabric. In my hand, the binder had just enough weight to steady me. On my phone, the message thread to Laura was open. The word "stop" already typed, one tap away. The door swung open. Sabrina offered a measured smile. "Dad." Cole stood behind her, hugging a document case like it was a piece of himself. They stepped aside and motioned me in. I crossed the threshold of a house that had once been mine. The wedding photo was gone from the wall. In its place, a blue-gray abstract. The living room glowed warm. The coffee table was bare, the finish bright. I set the binder down, pulled the chipped porcelain mug from my bag, and poured warm water from the bottle I'd brought. The polish and Sabrina's lemon perfume mixed, sweet on the air. "Let's help each other save face," Sabrina opened, angling her body to look softer. "You keep the house and a comfortable amount to live on. We'll handle the rest. Invest for the kids' future. Don't make a big deal out of this." Cole laid his case on the dining table and tapped the lid twice like a cue. "Sign a few papers and it's smooth sailing," he said low, like he was passing along a tip. I nudged the case back with 2 fingers. "What's a comfortable amount mean?" I looked straight at him. "And in return, I keep quiet about the updated will and the power of attorney you shoved at me after the funeral. Is that the deal?" Cole lifted his brows, exhaled. "It's a valid set," he said. "Court would land in the same place." I opened the binder, slid out the certified copy of the will, and set it square in the center of the table. I tapped the update date stamped in blue. "This date, your mother changed it. The old version is a fallback at best." I kept my pace slow so every word sat where it should. Sabrina crossed her leg. Her heel hissed against the rug. "I know," she said, then faltered. "I mean, I looked through the firm's email before. No, after the funeral, I wanted to get things organized." I left 3 beats of quiet. The porch light clicked ever so faintly as it changed modes. Then I began. "When did you learn there was an updated will?" I set the question down like a pin on the table. Sabrina wet her lips. "Before the reading," she said, slow. "I pulled up the invite from the law office. They sent it to me because you were away." That last word shrank. I dipped my head once, barely, and set the second pin. "Who drafted the so-called power of attorney you tried to make me sign?" Cole glanced at the case for a blink, then at me. "A template. At the print shop," he said, as if reading from some other sheet. "A buddy, an attorney, looked it over to meet spec." Under the table, Sabrina's shoe found his shin. The soft thud sounded like someone forcing a lid to fit. I didn't lunge. I let 3 beats pass and set the third pin. "That night, who changed the camera password? And where are your mother's envelopes?" I pointed at Cole's phone, then looked to Sabrina. Sabrina lifted her chin and spoke too fast. "We changed it to protect our assets, and the envelopes, I'm holding them to verify." She stopped and drew a hard breath, like someone who'd run a short distance with loose laces. A ring of steam traced the chip on the mug. I didn't drink. I closed the binder, put the lid on. "We should stop here," I said cleanly, like ending a meal. At the same moment, my thumb sent "stop." The phone buzzed once and went still. I set it face down on the table's edge. 15 seconds. 28. A knock at the door. 2 beats, even and clear. Sabrina lurched to her feet. Cole clamped the case to his chest and flicked his eyes at me. I looked down at the nick in the mug's rim. Outside, a woman's voice carried through the door. City Police. We have arrest warrants for Sabrina Hale Parker and Cole Parker. Please open the door. Sabrina stumbled a step, flicking a glance up at the bell camera like she could rewind what had just happened. Cole drew the case in tight. The door opened. Laura stepped in first, badge glinting at her belt, with two plainclothes behind her. Laura read, crisp, "We're executing arrest warrants number, and this is a narrowly tailored search warrant. Seize only the phones and the file folders brought to tonight's meeting." She looked up, giving me a half-beat of eye contact, enough to tell me the plan was on rails. "Dad!" Sabrina turned back to me, her voice breaking. "What are you doing?" "A few million in exchange for silence about an updated will," I said quiet. "That's not a settlement. That's a buy-off." A cop in gloves asked Cole to set the case down. Cole slammed it. A packet at the mouth sprang loose just enough to show a watermark. "Reprint, sign later." I said nothing. The officer slid the case and two phones into clear evidence bags, sealed them with barcode tape, and wrote the time in thick marker. The other officer read rights, unhurried, while their body cams, already rolling from the porch, caught it all. Cole tried to explain, his voice breaking timing, but Laura raised a hand. "You have the right to remain silent." Sabrina cried. It did not sound like the elegant tears she'd performed before. I stepped back half a pace, keeping distance so I wouldn't have to be hard with my hands. It all moved cleanly, like a drill everyone knew. When they walked Sabrina and Cole out, I glanced toward the window. A sweep of headlights slid across the wall where the wedding photo used to hang, then was gone. Wet leaves whispered. A moment later, the door closed, and the room held the hush of a book just shut. I didn't stay. I snapped the recorder case shut and slipped it into my inside pocket. I gave Laura a nod and walked out of my daughter's house, straight down the brick path. Across the street, a neighbor's curtain tilted, an eye blink of punctuation. I didn't stop. The cafe at the corner was lit. Omar was already there, Agent Dana beside him, a blank labeled USB and evidence bags on the table. I set the binder down and handed over the device. Dana connected, copied the file, read the timestamp aloud, wrote it on the seal, and signed. Omar signed. I signed. Chain of custody. From whom, when, to whom, filled line by line, every letter dark. Laura swung in. Quick update. Phones and case seized. Sealed on scene. En route now. Body cam footage and reports go to the prosecutor tonight. She placed a red tab copy of the warrant in front of me. "You keep this." I lifted the cafe's chipped mug and borrowed its heat. "I thought my heart would be louder," I said, hearing my own voice steady. "Turns out it's just even. Procedure keeps the beat," Omar said, half a quip, half a note for the file. His phone buzzed. He listened, then turned to me. "Bail hearing in the morning, and," he lowered his voice, "the prosecutor just confirmed a point about your wife's asset origin. They said the file is trending the right way." I tightened my fingers around the handle, the porcelain cool against my knuckles. I didn't ask. Enough for one night. I looked at the fresh seal, the marker ink still wet at the first stroke. Restraints placed in the right places don't choke anyone. They hold a story upright when it walks through wind. I finished my coffee. I thought about the three things I'd done right. Asked the right questions, closed with the right line, sent the right signal. The rest I'd let the stamps and signatures say. When I left, I slid the sealed USB into the red folder and snapped it tight. Out on the street, cars idled past, light ribbons skimming the wet pavement. I counted in my head, not money, not days, but the doors that had just been shut at the right time. Tomorrow would be loud, but tonight the room I'd sat in was quiet. Papers in their places, words in theirs, and me, after many years, finally in the right place inside my own story. The morning after the arrests, I stepped into a small county courtroom. The air was cold and clear as a glass of water left out overnight. Sabrina sat on the left side of the defendant's row, Cole on the right, both in dark clothes, both somehow smaller, as if someone had dimmed whatever light they used to carry. The prosecutor read the charges in a steady hammer strike: forgery, fraud, financial exploitation of an elder, conspiracy. I kept my eyes on the wood grain, watched the lines run like an underground stream. The judge asked a few brief questions, set bail, barred contact with the victim, and put a preliminary hearing on the calendar. I heard every word without stuffing any extra feeling into it. Sabrina turned to find my eyes. I let my lids fall, the way you set a sheet of paper over a candle. I didn't feel triumph. I breathed. Out in the hallway, a reporter asked, "Do you want to say anything?" I said one sentence. "I'll speak through my attorney." Omar stepped up, easing himself between me and the lens. "My client trusts the legal process," he said. Then we left. The road ahead was paperwork, not microphones. A few days later, we sat in a small conference room at a public building. Blue fabric chairs, HVAC in the walls. Agent Dana Whitaker, the federal investigator, slid a short document across the table. She didn't circle it. She went straight. "The part that needed confirming has been confirmed," Donna said with a nod. "Portions of your late wife's assets are tied to a prior cooperative program with our agency. All lawful. No impact on your inheritance." I nodded, didn't pry. I'd promised myself only open the doors that need opening. Omar said, "Please issue a brief written confirmation so we can deliver it to the bank." An hour later, we were in a third-floor conference room at the main branch. The manager read the confirmation, picked up the black desk phone. "Items 1, 3, and 5. Lift the freeze today. Item 7 needs cross-check. Run the expedited protocol." He set the phone down and printed individual unfreeze receipts, each with date-time approver. I watched the numbers come out like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again. "Would you like a time-stamped activity log for everything we did today?" the manager asked. "Yes," I said. "I always do." On the way back, Omar said it slowly. "From here on out, any questions from their side, please refer them to the documents." "I understand," I said. I'd learned how to stand behind a stamp. The next week we tidied the file. Denise set a plain sheet in front of me. No letterhead, no flourish. 3 words at the top. Conditions letter. I read line by line. No monthly stipend. Any support, if any, must be in writing and sent to a separate account. No cash. For support to be considered, Sabrina must acknowledge wrongdoing in writing, make restitution per the judgment, complete independent financial counseling, and maintain distance until the case and any restitution process are complete. Omar studied the draft, changed one word. Compassion became respect boundaries. His pen made a soft clack on the table's edge. I signed the last page. We didn't send it. "When they ask for help," I said, "this will be the only door." "Exactly," Omar said. "The gate sits at the boundary, not at the old habit." I filed the conditions letter into the binder. Between the unfreeze receipts and the updated deed to the house, the petition to withdraw the guardianship filing lay there too, a thin page that felt like a stone lifted out of a pocket. A few weeks later, the house looked brighter just from having fewer things in it. I rehung our wedding photo in another spot where the light passed through instead of slamming straight on. The local station came by to tape a short piece on preventing financial abuse of elders. The mic's black windscreen looked like an olive. "Are you angry?" the reporter asked. "I've learned to let paperwork speak," I said, "and to let the courts handle the rest." Final message? If you're where I was, rewrite the timeline, keep every letter, hire an attorney, call the police. Don't be afraid. Silence protects no one. The camera went dark. I answered nothing outside the topic. I didn't tell war stories. I didn't push anyone into a hole. I stood in a room warm enough to say just enough. A few months later, I poured my morning coffee into the chipped mug, steam lifting in a thin cord. On the table sat the closed binder. Next to it, the unfreeze receipts, the deed confirmation, a summary of the charges, and a small note. "Audio, sealed bag, safe." Sabrina's attorney sent a letter. She wanted to apologize, ask for forgiveness. I set the letter next to the conditions letter and looked at them for a while, the way you look at two parallel roads that don't need to meet. Then I filed them both. I stood at the window. Sunlight touched the table's edge. The yard smelled like fresh cut, green and mild, a promise that doesn't oversell itself. I said it very quietly to my own hands. Forgiveness is the work of time. Boundaries are the work of today. My phone buzzed. Denise, hearing schedule updated. I added it to the shared folder. Please eat lunch. I laughed by myself. That one little back, uncle in Vietnamese, her way of addressing me, felt like a sprig of grass laid across an official form. I opened the binder one last time that morning and brushed the sealed USB label with a fingertip. The ink had long since dried, but every time I touched it, I still felt the grit of a sound decision. Justice, I thought, isn't loud. It's like a good habit. Write at the right hour, keep the right paper, say the right line, stop at the right moment. Do it again and again until it becomes the way. At noon, I made another cup of coffee. Sunlight slanted across the lawn in a long stripe. I pictured a day when I might open the gate for Sabrina, not to move back in, but to apologize properly. When that day comes, I'll take out the conditions letter and read it line by line in an ordinary voice. No tears, no theater, just boundaries. I shut the window, left the wind outside and the coffee inside. On the table, the chipped mug stood there, imperfect, but durable enough to keep using. Like me, imperfect, but finally learning how to use myself for the right job. The rest I hand to time. If you enjoyed the story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about it in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left.